morning, good morning. Today we're going to talk about veterans. And I appreciate you all joining me on Veterans Day. Pretty extraordinary day. Let's see who we got here joining us. Well, I'll talk about veterans and then I'll say hi to people. Hello, Maria. Thank you for joining me. So the other day on Daily Dose of Salt, maybe a week ago, I noticed I was talking about voting and, our right to vote. And it just occurred to me, and I am speaking about Americans, but then I would be speaking about all of you that live in a democracy, whatever your democracy is. I just had this perspective of, we all kind of have this attitude that we have a right to vote and we have a right to decide who runs our country, whichever country it is, if you live in a democracy. And it occurred to me that, perhaps, just a perspective, perhaps some of us have more right to vote than others. And it occurred to me that what about veterans? What about the spouses of veterans killed in action? What about veterans wounded in action? What about veterans who went to war and somehow miraculously survived when their mates did not? And so, these are people, right or wrong wars, that's a whole different debate, that either voluntarily or were drafted to go risk their life, leave their families for sometimes months and months, even years at a time, and risk their life. And I don't know if you imagine, I have imagined what it would be like to be a soldier at war, whether it's World War I, where, they're basically just throwing thousands of bodies at an arsenal of bullets and bombs, sacrificing wave after wave after wave of human beings just to maybe gain 100 yards or a half a mile of territory. Meaningless territory, maybe. And then World War II, where, our soldiers are all over the world fighting in all these different battles. And again, waves and waves of men and some women dying for our democracy. And you think about the spouses, the lives ruined, the families ruined, the kids that were never, born, the wealth lost in these lives. And here we are, let's say in the United States of America, whining about voting and who gets to vote and votes count and all this kind of stuff. And yet, what have we done to deserve living in a democracy? I'll tell you what I've done to deserve living in a democracy. Nothing. I haven't done anything but take from the resources of the United States of the world, the United States of America, take from the ocean, take from the air, take from the land, take from the beauty. I've never put anything back. Take from the economy. All right, perhaps I have given more than I've taken from the economy. That would be for certain. Generated more jobs, more income, more revenue for the economy than I've taken. But still, I have taken from the economy. What have I given to the democracy? Nothing. I've never been in the military, never have even at the time that I could have been drafted. If you would have tried to draft me at the age of 18, I'm sure I would have bolted to Canada or something. Why? Because I was just a selfish, immature kid. And there's a lot of kids that are not selfish and immature. A lot of kids that that went to war, either voluntarily or allowed themselves to be drafted. And I wanted to give you a sense of the cost for democracy. And this is from the Department of Veterans Affairs. I'll post a link to it if you're interested in the numbers. The American Revolution, total U.S. servicemen, 217,000. Battle deaths, 4,435. And you have to remember, this is when there's very few Americans even in America, and we're fighting the British, right? The War of 1812, I'll just talk about deaths, 2,260. The Indian Wars, 1,000. But of course, the veterans don't put, how many American Indians did we slaughter? Hundreds of thousands, I'm sure. An atrocity, genocide, just so we could take their country. And I'm not saying they didn't take the country from somebody before them, but not a good history on us. The Mexican War, deaths, battle deaths, 1,733. What are we doing? Taking territory from Mexico. The Civil War, battle deaths, the Union, 140,000. Confederate, 74,000. 210,000 deaths in the Civil War. You think about the generations of children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren and great-great-grandchildren that could have had a life in America, but they didn't. Killing each other over slavery. Wow, it's a nasty history. Spanish-American War, battle deaths 385. World War I, battle deaths 53,402. 53,000 deaths. And where were our grandparents? I'll tell you where my I've done my genealogy on my tree. I don't find active in the war zone military service anywhere in my history. And my relatives immigrated to the United States in the 1800s. Now, I'm sure there was some, but I just haven't found it yet. But I don't have any decorated soldiers. My father wasn't, my grandfather wasn't, my great-grandfather wasn't. What were they doing? They were living abundantly in the United States of America. So we have takers, we have givers, and then we have the ultimate givers that have given their life, their future, their ability to create a family, and then a second generation family and a third generation family. World War II, battle deaths, 291,557. Folks, think about, a lot of you understand compounding and exponential growth and family trees, right? That's 291,000 who could have fathered or mothered 2 or 3 children, who then could have gone on to father or mother 2 or 3 children. So we're quickly talking about millions of people who don't get to live because people died. And was it an honorable death? That's to decide whether or not it was honorable that we went to war. So I'm not an authority on the history of war. World War II might have been the most honorable, thwarting off a dictator who was looking to take over the world, who created genocide. That would be Hitler. The Korean War, 33,739. The Vietnam War, 47,434. Desert Shield, 148. And Desert Storm. I don't know why Iraq and Afghanistan isn't on here, but it's not. Should be, I guess. Global War on Terror, which would be since October 2001, right after 9/11. Doesn't give a number. And now we're in a war with a virus. Almost 240,000 dead. Oh yes, I know. A lot of those people would have died anyway. Okay, that's true. In fact, all of them would have died anyway, eventually. Um, but that's more people than have died in any war that you and I can remember, or perhaps even our parents can remember. That's as many people as died in World War II. Just in 2020, in 8 months of 2020. So I don't know. Who deserves the right to vote? Who deserves the right to complain? Those of us that have just taken from the opportunity to be Americans or Canadians or any other democracy? Or those of us that have paid the ultimate sacrifice? You know, wouldn't it be interesting if the right to vote was based on what you've given to your democracy? You know, did you graduate from high school or college and then go spend 2 years in the Peace Corps? Did you go spend a couple of years serving your country, cleaning up environmental toxicity and trash, or helping the homeless, or building infrastructure for our country, or serving humanity in the United States some way, somehow? Did you do that for 2 years? Did you volunteer for the military for 2 years? Did you do anything to support our democracy for 2 years? I didn't. Almost everybody I know didn't and isn't going to. And yet we enjoy the fundamental freedoms of a democracy. So today, I honor the veterans for the United States of America. I honor the people who were scared to death for weeks or months or years at a time. Can you just imagine having bombs go off all around you, bullets flying all over you, never knowing when a bomb's going to blow up your vehicle, or something's going to come in and blow up your camp? Can you imagine being put in a position of killing other human beings? That's what our veterans have been through. And we do a lousy, lousy, lousy job in this country of even taking care of their families, even taking care of the wounded, the dismembered. It's Veterans Day, folks. So you can march in a parade and you can wave the flag, or maybe in it you and I can think about, what can we do to give back to our democracy versus taking from it? And that's just something to think about on this beautiful Veterans Day while I'm hanging out in Hawaii, taking from the democracy. So that's what I have today for Daily Assault. Romero, my 92-year-old dad is a veteran. Most of my uncles were veterans. That's beautiful. I'd love to hear if you want to put, my husband was in the Canadian Military Navy as a young man. I'm not trying to shame any of us that haven't done anything. You know what? There's not really a great structure in our country. I mean, I love the idea of, you know, there's been ideas put forth where, hey, kids out of high school, if you'll go spend a couple of years serving your country, Peace Corps, cleaning up the environment, serving the less fortunate, the government will pay for your college education. You know, imagine what a more beautiful country we would have if all of our young kids, instead of playing video games and, you know, drowning in social media and Me Tooism and competing with each other, imagine if they graduated from high school and they had to go serve your country for 2 years, and then you got a free college education. We'd have much smarter people. We'd have much more mature people. I mean, when kids are put in a position to serving for 2 years, the less fortunate, the very less fortunate, they gain humility. They gain empathy. They gain perspective. They grow up. They gain maturity. They gain responsibility. And boy, could we use for our population to be more educated. I don't necessarily mean a 4-year traditional college education, But, you know, what if you got the education of your choice? What if you got a trade education or an art education or something that allowed you to prosper in your democracy? And what if it was free, or what if it was half paid for, or something, right? In exchange for serving your country. We don't have good structures like that. Maria, your uncle was a MIA POW during World War II, Germany battling Hitler. It isn't, I mean, can you imagine, Maria, how scared he was? I mean, it's just unimaginable. And we don't have enough perspective. I'm looking. Looking for stories. Your husband, 5 conflicts, 30 years of service, Maria. And your daughter in basic training. That's scary. Thank you for your comments. If you want to drop in the comments, you know, anybody, any story of anybody that you know that has paid the ultimate sacrifice. And I don't mean that they lost their life. I mean, there are so many veterans that have come back psychologically, emotionally, and physically impaired for life. And their spouses. And so if you have somebody you want to acknowledge here, drop them in the comments. And it's, you know, it's kind of eerie and kind of sad, but I actually don't know anyone. I don't have anybody in my personal circle that's paid that price, certainly not in my family, in generations that I'm aware of. And so that's my message for Daily Dose of Salt. I would really appreciate, I'm going to read every one of your stories if you care to drop them in. And Stacy, if you could just drop a Google link in of Department of Veterans Affairs. Looks like this. It's got all the statistics of the number of people in each war that paid the price. Interesting perspective. Thanks. See you tomorrow.